Hello and welcome back to the Canadian Hydrogen Convention here in beautiful Edmonton, Alberta. We're here sitting inside the Edmonton Region Hydrogen Hub and on the Edmonton Global stage where we're coming to you live all day. Again, this is day 2 of our broadcast from the Canadian Hydrogen Convention, where we're welcoming about 10,000 of our closest friends from all over the world. Speaking of our closest friends, we're now doing a session on transitioning fleets and innovations in hydrogen vehicles. We've got 3 guests with us, some international expertise and some local expertise. First, we've got Joy Roberts, who's a program manager with the Refire Group. We've got Alec Cervenka with Zero Emissions Fleet Manager with Kenworth Truck Company, and Derek Hanson from the City of Edmonton, who's Director of Transit Fleet Maintenance. So local, kind of North American-ish, and both local, national, and a ton of experience in China and Asia. So I think it'll be a really interesting conversation. So maybe just to get us started, Joy, can you tell us a little bit about the Refire Group and kind of what you're up to?
Thank you very much. I'm really excited to be here in Edmonton and have a chance to see what Edmonton is and the area is doing. So I work for a company called Refire, and Refire is located in multiple sites around the world. Our head office is in Shanghai, but I work in the Vancouver office. And so we want to be the world leaders in commercialization of hydrogen and fuel cell technology. And we want to do that with global partners around the world.
Wow. And I'm going to ask you just one more quick one, just to give a sense of scale. So in China, their goal is to have like tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of hydrogen fuel cell vehicles on the road, like really quickly. And you already have more than 5,000, is that right?
So we have deployed more than 5,500 systems in China, and over 190 million kilometers have been driven on those vehicles.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay, so let's hear a little bit about Kenworth.
Yeah, so Alec Cervenka, I'm the Zero Emission Sales Manager over at Kenworth Truck Company. So what my role there is essentially working with all of our fleet customers, also with kind of local governments, provincial, federal governments, and utility providers, fueling infrastructure providers, basically making sure the whole gang is there when we're trying to make the transition from a traditional carbon-intense kind of way of working through commercial freight movement to a zero emissions-based freight movement. So the really exciting thing right now is that we do have a fuel cell electric vehicle, a Class 8 model, the T680 FCEV, that's going to be coming out kind of towards the tail end of 2025.
Okay.
And we've partnered with Toyota on that, so really exciting.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we, at Kenworth, we just celebrated our 100-year anniversary last year, so really proud of how we can put a truck together. And we chose to work with Toyota because they have over 30 years of experience in fuel cells. So we really think that having them as a partner and then kind of working together, we've really got a strong product to get to market pretty quick here.
Yeah, that's amazing. And just, I think people who are familiar with the trucking industry know how huge of a company Kenworth is. Mm-hmm. Can you give us just a bit of a sense of the global footprint?
Yeah, so globally, Kenworth is one of the brands under the PACCAR kind of umbrella. So in North America, you also have our sister brand Peterbilt. They're also coming out with their fuel cell version, the 579 HFC. And then we also have Kenworth Australia that's going to be exploring. They actually have one of our early prototype fuel cell trucks running in the Outback right now.
Oh, wow.
And then over in Europe, we have DAF, who are exploring both fuel cell and hydrogen combustion. And then realistically, there are PACCAR vehicles on pretty much all continents around the globe, including China. So.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, Derek. So the City of Edmonton is really, all in on hydrogen. We've got buses. We're looking at, fleet vehicles for other types of vehicles, fueling stations. There's a lot happening here. Can you just talk a bit about what you're doing with the city and kind of what's coming next?
Yeah, thank you. So we've got 6,000 vehicles within our fleet, and we've got this mission to decarbonize or at least reduce the carbon of our fleet. So we've got 2 hydrogen fuel cell buses between City of Edmonton and Strathcona County that are in service right now. We've got 4 hydrogen dual fuel retrofit vehicles that will be ready to go this year. Actually, 2 of them will be ready here in Q2. We're bringing on some Toyota Mirai, so we're looking at the light duty sector as well. We built the first hydrogen maintenance bay in the region. We've done a number of feasibility studies. We'll have 2 hydrogen fueling stations in service here in the next couple of years, and we're really looking as hydrogen to be that solution for our long haul, heavy duty fleet going forward.
Okay, wonderful. When we look at kind of what's happening, again, it's people talk about the fueling infrastructure, the vehicles, how those things need to happen at the same time. One of the things that we've been part of helping organize and run is the 5,000 Hydrogen Vehicle Challenge, and it's a way to bring together all the elements within that supply chain to de-risk, so people can understand who's doing what when. It includes, I think all of you, banks, insurance companies, fleet maintenance shops, even NATE, which is a large education provider who's working on like the tooling to get people really ready to be the mechanics. So we've got these pieces starting to be in place. When you look at like maybe what's happening in China, Joy, do you see those same things happening? I know largely it's probably government driven. Ours is more industry based coming up, but just I'm curious about lessons learned from China.
Well, I think you make a really excellent point, is that developing the whole ecosystem equally is important.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have the supply and demand, you're not going to get to the point where you've moved from policy-driven to market-driven. And China did start with their policies 20 years ago and have been doing them in 5-year batches where they cascade a high-level policy down to the municipalities and let them come up with the concrete targets. But lately, as they've been doing these more recent policies, there's really a focus on getting it to the point where there's a market pull, rather than them having to support that. And I think that's one of the key opportunities that the Edmonton area should take a look at, is ensuring that you have the balance and that you make it a market that is sustainable and can run on its own. And I'm sure my colleagues feel the same way in that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of where we're at right now. Is we are at the point where we have regulations in place on our industry that essentially, just the quickest way to think about it is based on the overall vehicle output, so a lot of diesel, natural gas, that is starting to need to be accompanied by increased zero-emission vehicles. So there's a little bit of a market squeeze that we're going to feel at the fleet level, where in order to stay in compliance with the regulations from the EPA, from California Air Resource Board, we're going to be producing more zero-emission vehicles, and we're likely going to see a knee-over point in about 2036, where you're going to see more fuel cell electric vehicles, more battery electric vehicles than traditional fuel vehicles.
Yeah.
Again, regulation drives a lot of that, but we're kind of at a unique position right now where we get to work with governments, we get to work with a lot of funding agencies, and we get to come up with the plans. But I think we have to make sure that we're looking past that pilot project.
Yeah.
We need to look at this for what it is, which is really, we're creating a whole new economy in North America. It's not just a new truck, it's a new truck, new fuel production, new fuel distribution, new training, new servicing, and thankfully we've got about 3 years to make it all work. So.
Yeah, and one of my concerns has always been we might wait till it's too late to say, okay, we've got all the fuel ready, and now we want the trucks, and there's a perception that that can be turned around very quickly. And
yeah, it's something we've been talking about, this integration and alignment with policy and with investment. And in order to scale up past our pilot projects, because we can't be stuck in pilot project mode forever. And it's nice that we've got the funding and the grants that is taking place right now, but we need to flick the switch and have aligned policy and investment to make this happen on a larger scale.
Yeah. And if I could just add about flipping the switch, I think it's a great analogy for more than one thing. In China, one of the things that they're also doing is that they haven't gone fully renewable at the beginning.
Yeah.
And so the approach I think that Alberta's looking at is like this integration into renewables, starting, even if it's at grey, but starting to build that capability and then moving to renewables makes a lot of sense. And there's experience in China along the same way.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we're going to be really fortunate with is we're already producing quite a sizable amount of hydrogen that is net zero. Air Products facility, the largest net zero hydrogen facility in the world, comes online next year, and they will be making fuel grade liquid hydrogen and setting up a network of fueling stations. So like by next year, those aren't, when you're putting $1.6 billion into a project, that's not a pilot. That's a real deal. It's global scale.
Seems fairly serious, yeah.
It's pretty big.
Yeah.
And that's just one of the projects that's on the go. So I think we mostly will be able to jump over that kind of gray stage and go right to something that's net zero. pretty quick. So it's getting the vehicles fast will be part of our challenge.
And it's kind of interesting too. I feel like in the early days, a lot of us we were focused on the gold standard, right? And
Yeah.
we wanted to just make sure that we can jump from point A to true zero or net negative intensity. But I feel like the industry, and hopefully you're seeing the same thing too, is just that, we're understanding that you don't want to let perfect stand in the way of great.
Yes.
So a lot of folks are coming to us and they're concerned, they're curious about carbon intensity, but for right now they say we have to get started realistically. So,
I couldn't agree more. It has to be in the name of innovation and driving innovation, and we should allow innovation to drive these projects forward rather than a policy that prohibits that innovation. And we were here last year, and at the City of Edmonton, we're looking to hit a home run. And I think we've learned now that you need a full team of people hitting incremental singles to get you along the way, rather than sort of, one organization taking it on its own and trying to hit a home run. And we were talking about that chicken and egg, and I made an analogy that we wanted to be the chefs. And I think now we've come 1 year later, kind of full circle, and realized, not only do you need one chef, but you need multiple chefs. You need sous chefs, and you need sous chefs and chefs from different restaurants working together to make this happen.
yes, chef.
Well played. Yeah, it's again, I think the point you made earlier that we're building a whole new economy. Like you think about how long it took to have, the fossil fuel economy develop and build and become what it is, and it's like what is that, 50, 100 years to try to flip this over in 5 or 6 or 10. Like we've never really moved that fast as a society or societies. So it's a really big undertaking. Again, our target is 5,000 vehicles within 5 years. We're already 1 year into that. I think we're already seeing signs that we were hedging bets a little bit, saying, well, maybe that's Alberta, maybe that's Western Canada. I think we'll actually surpass that just in the Edmonton region. So it looks like that's maybe not as much of a stretch goal as we'd first planned. But again, we look at examples like in China. Can you talk about how fast that growth was from, we want to do this and populations are very different, space is very different, but just how fast that grew?
So one of the things that the Chinese government did is they chose to focus on city clusters. And I heard this discussion in an earlier talk today, and I think it's a really good approach because it allows you to centralize where you're going to place your refueling strategies and really focus your resources and incubate, essentially, the right environment, and then you can expand it and grow. So they did this in 5 city clusters, and in 2018 to 2022, they registered 10,000 fuel cell electric vehicles, so that the heavier duties. Then in 1 year, additional year to 2023, they did another 10,000. And the next goal is that they're aiming for 50,000 vehicles by 2025. So really aggressive targets. So I think it's inspiring, the City of Edmonton started, you put a number down. And I think the key thing from China, too, that they've learned is you always have to go back and look at what your plan is. Is it right? Is this working or not working? Or maybe your target needs to be higher.
So there's always the conversation of the carrot and the stick, right? So there's the stick, which is the regulation, which China put out. But I guess the question in my mind is, how did they enable that? Like, what was the carrot for this growth?
Definitely there were subsidies involved in the initial stages. And that was one of the learning exercises they had. There's a great story about, when they first started, they were looking primarily for anybody to demonstrate the technology, whether or not it was practical for a product. And so then that evolved into the fact that they have to work very hard to get the subsidy now. So they have to demonstrate, and you probably know this, like at least 30,000 kilometers on the road on the vehicle before the subsidy is rewarded.
Gotcha. Yeah, because that's kind of where we are right now in the heavy duty environment. Is that we're confident in the technology. Like working with Toyota, I think we've got, and my friend over there is probably going to correct me, but it's close to 3 million miles on fuel cells. That's been it's proven they work. The catch is it's still new technology, and new technology at lower volumes, basic economics. It's going to be a price premium. So what we're trying to work on now is how can we collaborate with the governments and come up with programs that kind of allow that 5,000 to become 10, to become 15, and so on.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree. The technology is here right now. China is showing it. Europe is showing it. It's showing down in California. And our buses are meeting our service requirements today. So there's not more testing required to just see if this product works. The product works. In the heavy industry, in the long haul industry, it works right now, and it's about getting that support and alignment at a policy level and investment to then advance this even further.
Yeah.
And support can have multiple ways that it looks. For example, they're talking about removing tolls for fuel cell vehicles. So that's a huge incentive so that that it gets people to buy the vehicles regardless of the cost, because in the end they're saving a lot of money. So there are other opportunities, and one of the things I think that's critical here too is getting those tax credits so that people can have that type of reward.
Yeah, exactly. Because as you say, like the technology works, the economics maybe not quite yet. So we've got to, it's very close. So a little bit of incentive, I think we've got to hit that tipping point where all of a sudden, maybe there's a little bit of first mover, that's some risk, but the more we can decrease that financially, the more we can decrease that operationally, I think this is going to really take off again, especially when Air Products turns on next year and fuel becomes super abundant.
I used to get chirped at quite a bit when I would use the pool analogy when talking about battery electric vehicles, but since it's hydrogen, I can use it. And realistically, there are fleets standing at the edge of the pool. And we're just waiting for one fleet to jump in and really start that, because this is the way they see the market going. This is the way they see the industry going. They know that hydrogen as a fuel will work. It's just I think you said de-risking earlier.
Yeah.
Who is able to kind of jump in, lead the transition, and that's really what I'm trying my best to be the bully at the pool and push people in nicely, but if there's more incentive, if we had some loonies and toonies at the bottom for them to go diving for in the pool, I think they'd jump in a lot sooner.
Yeah, well, let's make sure you're plugged into this 5,000 Hydrogen Vehicle Challenge Champions Committee that we built, because it is trucking companies, people like AMTA, City of Edmonton, again, like banks, finance, insurance companies. It's a whole massive group of them.
It gets big very quickly.
Yeah. And again, you need all those pieces, I think, to really fully de-risk it, or de-risk it as much as we can, or even to then come together to government and say, do this, do that, and we're all going to show up.
I think you made a really good point earlier, and it's been a common theme at this. I'm not the one to come forward with this idea even today, but aligning our climate resilience policies with the economics.
Yeah.
And I think that has evolved and advanced even from this conference last year. And people are starting to think it needs to make sense from both perspectives, and writing policy around climate resilience that's aligned with the economics is vitally important.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things we spend a lot of times. We are industry professionals in the vehicle industry, but we have to look at it from a whole holistic point of view, that it's climate resiliency. It's just our contribution happens to have wheels on it. But I think Alberta in particular are really well poised, just given the past with oil and gas experience, that not necessarily a flip of the switch, but it's about as close as you can get.
Yeah.
So I think this is really exciting to see what's happening here.
And I just wanted to add, I heard an earlier point made, and it was a really good one, is that it's an interesting time to be here because it is more collaborative than probably I've ever seen it in the industry. And so I think that's going to help move it forward as well.
Okay. It's nice. We're down to about the last minute. So I think each of you just almost said a really good wrap-up comment. So maybe talk a little bit about what are you hoping to get out of the Canadian Hydrogen Convention? If there's somebody watching this either live or recorded and says, I wish I would have been there this year. I want to make sure I show up next year. Is there anything that you've learned or that you experienced or surprised you that would make you feel like, this is worth showing up to, and that person who's maybe watching from their desk today should be here next year?
Okay, so to start there, I would say it's the energy of the conference.
Yeah.
The people are motivated to make this happen and to make this change. And I think that's pivotal not only for Alberta, but for Canada and for the world.
I honestly think that just the sheer scale of the conference has kind of surprised me as I walk around. And to your point about people wanting to make things happen, it's just, you can just kick off a conversation, and the next thing you know, you've already established 13 pins on a route, and now you know where the fuel is going to come. It's just, this is how it kind of happens organically. And then one additional plug for why you should come next year is we are going to have a truck here next year.
Yes.
We've already decided, so it will be here.
I would just say I'll use the word alignment in terms of strategy and objective, and whether you're talking about production, manufacturing, fleet management, all levels of government, private and public, the common goal and common strategy needs to be advancing the hydrogen economy, period.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks so much. Derek, Alec, Joy, again, you're real experts on this. It's wonderful you brought global perspective to this conversation. Thank you so much. Again, really enjoyed it. And we'll be sharing this online afterwards too, so if you want to share with networks, please do. That's the end of this session on refueling and just big innovations that are coming in hydrogen. We've got one more panel coming up, then we'll take a bit of a break for lunch. And just as a reminder, this afternoon is going to be super exciting. We've got Plug and Play running a global pitch challenge right here on the stage, as well as an international student case competition. The finals taking place here. We had 28 teams from around the world that entered. We've got the 5 top ones that'll be here this afternoon. And if you enjoyed this conversation and like conversations like this, we've created a new podcast called Future Simple. That will be streaming any day now. We're going to start launching podcasts there. And it's taking things that are really complex, globally important, talking to leaders in the field to actually simplify those and help make sense of it. So it's watch for that. It will be coming out on all your favorite streaming platforms. So we're going to take a break for lunch. Thanks again, and we'll see you soon.